Okay, welcome back, class. Today we're going to look at range variables. So a range variable is named just like a normal variable, and it's just a variable with multiple values attached to it. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying X range. I like to subscript it as a range, then I know it's a range variable. Then I'm going to define that as 0 or 0, and then I'm going to use semicolon button. You should see two dots appear, and then to a number 5. This is called a range variable. When I call up the range variable, x.range, I see that it gives me a list of numbers here, or row of numbers, okay, column of numbers rather. Alright, now let's have a look at this row of numbers. Can you see they are in? They're numbered starting at 0, ending at 5, and they're in intervals of 1. Okay. Now, this is fine if we want to use the range variable to count through something. So normally when we count, we'll count in integers. Okay, but sometimes we need this range variable to do other things for us. So in that case, what we want to do is that we want to insert smaller values between 0 and 1. So let's say 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Okay. Right. So the way we do that, okay, is we come over here and we say 0, comma, and then we'll put in the increment. Right. So if I ask for X range now, I'll see that it increments in values. Okay. Going up in steps of 0.1. Can you see that? Right. So now, maybe a better way to explain this. Just say I've got a start value. Let's say -5, for example. I'll have an end value. Let's define that as 5. And then I'm going to have an increment. And I'll just say, let's call that 0.25. So what I'm going to do is, instead of calling that 0, I'm going to call that start. The end there. I'll call that end. And this incremental value works like this. I'll open the brackets and I'll say start plus the increment to the end. Okay. So now you understand exactly how this thing is laid out. It's a start number plus the start plus the increment to the end. So if I call up X range, X range, you can see it starts at -5, and then the next step is 0.25. Okay. All right. Now, often what we want to do is we want to divide the start and the end up into a set or a known number of divisions. Okay, or steps. All right. Okay. So let's say we wanted steps. We wanted them to be 50. Okay. So now we are going to divide. We're going to change the increment. We're going to set the increment as the end minus the start divided by the number of steps. Okay. All right. So if I ask for X range now, I'll see that this will divide this up exactly into 100 steps. Okay. Let's give a starting value of 0. Let's give an ending value of 1. And let's make the steps 100. Okay. So when I call up X range, I can see that it starts at 0, and you see it's incrementing 5.1. See that? Now, if I click on this, can you see that the scroll bar appears here? I can scroll all the way down, and you see it ends at 1. So I've divided this exactly up into 100 steps. Okay. Now this is going to be important. Because when we're graphing, we might want to use an X range on the on the X-axis. Okay, and we wanted to graph at precise intervals. Okay. All right. Okay, now we can also use this to count backwards. Okay, so if I started at 1 and I ended at 0, and I've got 100 steps, can you see it's now counting down? Okay, so we can count backwards. Okay, right. Okay. I think that's about all we need to know about range variables. Okay. All right. So pay attention to this. It's important. We use range variables a lot. Okay. So there are two scenarios. So just to recap, two scenarios where we use them. One, if we want to count, then we do not have the start plus increment value over here. We'll just start to an end, and it'll count in integers. If we want to count in values less than integers or greater than integers, then we have to put a stepping value in here. Okay. So, give you an example here. Let's make that 100. And I'm not going to have 100 steps. Just have 20 steps. Let's make it 10 steps. And you can see it's now stepping in increments of 10. Okay. Alright, so we can set this to whatever we like. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks. Right, bye-bye.